Good morning, everybody, and welcome to The Hot Seat, our weekly show over at One Woman Shop, from One Woman Shop, I should say. We are Cristina and Sara, and if you're not familiar, One Woman Shop is a resource hub and membership community for female solo business owners. And if we look at all tired today, we were just discussing this, because we had one of our biggest launches of the year yesterday. So we are giving ourselves permission, and I'm just going to get it right away, which is our mom reference. We're telling ourselves what our mothers would tell us, which is we have permission to be tired after a big launch. Is that right?
We do. We have permission to be nice to ourselves. That's what I told her this morning. I was like, as my mom would say. No, but we were just discussing how the launch actually felt fairly easy considering other launches we've done, and because this is one of our biggest projects that we've actually done before and are now replicating this year. And so it has felt much easier than we thought it would, but our joke is we still got the traffic, so we're allowed to be tired in correlation with the amount of traffic.
Yes. Okay. So let's tell people a little bit more about what we're talking about exactly.
Yeah, good call. So we were talking about 100 best sites for solopreneurs. So this is a list that we originally launched last year in 2015, April. And we decided to do it again for a bunch of different reasons. And we have had an incredible response. We're so excited to see all the responses rolling in. But do you want to talk about some of the reasons we decided to do the list again this year?
Yeah. So a little bit about what goes into the list is that we open nominations for about 2.5 weeks in March. Last year it was just kind of an experiment, but this year it was a little bit more planned out. We open nominations via social media, via our email list. People submit through a form where we ask them the sites that they go to for resources on digital marketing or productivity, a bunch of different categories. And they have the option to name themselves so that we can actually give them credit for the nomination, as well as give us why they love that site or a quote about it. So we have probably 50% of the nominations where people will get really detailed about why they love the site and give us their information as well as quotes. And then 50 where people are anonymously nominating, which I think is really cool too. We decided to do it for a ton of different reasons, but based on what I just shared, one of the big reasons is because it's an awesome way to engage our community and get them involved in something pretty big. So I think it's really fun to see people participate, nominate, share the nomination form, and get really excited about being able to nominate their favorite sites and their favorite fellow freelancers, solopreneurs, business owners.
So many websites. Can you hear me? Oh.
Yeah, you just cut out for a second.
We know so many sites, but we also don't know all the sites. And so when we engage our community, it is amazing how much it amplifies the effect of the amount of nominations that come in and the amount of sites that are new to us. And so it's really exciting to see that kind of, I don't want to call it viral because I feel like that's overused, but it feels a little bit viral.
Yeah, for us.
Yeah, awesome. So another reason that we do the list is because we really believe, and this is also a little bit of an overused phrase, but we definitely believe in it, which is collaboration over competition. And so I know we've used that Instagram that hashtag on Instagram. We're discombobulated today, guys. But again, we don't everything. There are some incredible sites out there who are doing things that we aren't doing or that are supplementing the work we are doing. And so we really want to highlight those people.
Yeah, no, and it's really important because one of the things we preach is that going it alone shouldn't feel lonely. Well, there are a million resources out there and a ton of different places to turn to, and we want people to know that there's not just one set resource for everything. So it is really important to us to also keep all of these sites top of mind for what we're doing when we need people to turn to for certain expertise or certain resources. Which really, that's another reason that we do it, is just the sheer amount of amazing resources out there. It would be kind of sad not to kind of pay them some tribute.
Yeah, absolutely. And so another reason which we have to say, which it feels very, I don't know, it feels very kind of whatever it feels. Don't have words today, clearly. But it does drive a ton of traffic to the site, and it does increase our numbers on all social media platforms, and it does build our email list. And so every single day for the last year, 100 Best Sites has been the top traffic post on the site. And so it's a great example of kind of roundup content that really does bring people to your site. So
yeah,
pretty well.
Yeah. So clearly we wouldn't do it if we didn't see any benefit to One Woman Shop. So we've listed several benefits already, but there are drawbacks, and we have to consider those drawbacks. So when we did it for the first year, it was, like we said, an experiment, but we decided to run it again. And we did kind of pull back and say, is this something we want to do again, knowing the amount of hours that needs to go into it to make it happen and make it done right. I don't even know if that's English, make it done right. But
boy, we need to start drinking. That's what needs to happen.
I almost came on with a mimosa, but I only have the champagne. I don't have the orange juice, and that just didn't feel right.
Well, as my friend always orders her mimosas, but she always says to the waiter, could you hold the orange juice? And it takes them a second, and they're like, nice.
All right, so I don't feel so bad. But I also knew that I would need a nap after this, and yeah. So anyway, we did have to consider the drawbacks of literally posting this massive post that we know is going to take time away from other projects and draw a ton of traffic to our site, but it's going to be promoting 100 resources that are not us. So that is really, really important to consider for us. But we really weighed it against all of the reasons that we just shared about why we do it. Yeah, absolutely. And so I think basically we like to take a critical look at all of our projects, and oftentimes we end up moving forward on them. We actually have an example with 100 Best Sites of something we didn't move forward on that we had thought about. But in the case of just creating the list itself, we did decide, you know what, like you said, the benefits outweigh the drawbacks. But another drawback that we saw is, again, directing traffic and directing interest away from One Woman Shop is a drawback. But in addition, we think there's so much out there. It's so overwhelming already online. And so we didn't necessarily want to contribute to overwhelm. And so we don't want anyone to feel like, we joke about people falling down the rabbit hole, and we think that's fun. But at the same time, we don't want the list to be a distraction from running your solo business. And so we don't want it to be all about information, but no implementation. We've talked about that in a lot of different ways on a bunch of different blogs and on the site, but basically making sure as you go through the list, making sure that you're not using it as a procrastination method. So bookmark it, and it's going to be there forever. I wanted to tell you, a bookmark, you do not have to take it all in at once. Please don't.
Right.
So I think that's a perfect lead into what we've learned over the last really 2 years of doing it, because one of the first things we learned when we were doing it last year, and we had this just gigantic collection of sites, was that we really needed to break it down into categories. And I think that contributes to our preaching that we don't want it to inspire overwhelm, where we kind of see, well, you know, we want you to look at the list and say, I really actually need more resources when it comes to digital marketing, so I'm going to go to that category. But what we learned is categorizing is really, really hard. So even when we were really feeling good about the fact that we knew we were going to categorize us and it would make the list so much more digestible, it was still a real battle to come up with the categories and then take sites that do talk about several different things and place them in one category.
Yeah, and I would say it's fair to say that every single site we could argue for it to be in a different category. But at some point you just have to be like, does this matter in the grand scheme of life? Have we made our best decision? It's like when you take a multiple choice test and you're like, go with your first instinct. Sometimes, you think through it again, but you're like, no, I should go with my first instinct. So I think that's kind of our strategy for categorization. But I think it really just speaks to the fact that people are very well-rounded and that people are oftentimes multi-passionates. We've talked about that before in Blab, but you hear people talking about digital marketing, but within digital marketing, they're talking about lifestyle and they're talking about sanity. And so we think that those things should be talked about at the same time. So it makes sense.
Yeah, it's definitely like a true testament to the fact that a lot of pieces of a solo business do overlap. So it's kind of hard to talk about one without talking about the other. And the other thing I wanted to say about that is one way we did try to alleviate the overwhelm of having to categorize sites is this year on the nomination form. We did ask people what category they would place their nomination in. I don't even think it was required, but we had several people actually fill it out. And that was really insightful because we had some sites where if they were on the site last year, they were actually under a different category, but this person, like they moved them from, say, digital marketing to branding, copy, and content. Or even some where we were like, oh, this is definitely solopreneur mindset. But they didn't see it as that. They saw it as something else. So that was really interesting, but it was also super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And so another thing that we have learned change from last year is we have talked a lot in the last year about different forms of content. So we are doing videos right here on Blab. We're embedding those videos on our site. And so we basically wanted to take into account that people are doing a lot of different forms of content outside of just strictly written content. So I would say the most common thing we saw was podcasts. Then videos, some YouTube channels, some Blab channels. What other, can you think of any other examples of
we have one that is actually a must-view graphic because we thought the graphic was really cool.
True. And it was like the graphic was just maybe one little sentence, but it said it all. Yeah, absolutely.
And we actually, so Jenny is here on our blog today, and she's one of our 100 Best Sites winners. She is under the Solopreneur Lifestyle category. And I think we mentioned on there, she's the queen of Blab. So even though we did share a must-read post for Jenny, we definitely tried to incorporate the fact that people are creating tons of different forms of content.
Yeah, resident Blab queen. Exactly. And so I would say the biggest takeaway, there's a few different points. So there's a few different things we want to talk about here. But I think our biggest takeaway is that you can, I just had this debate with somebody the other day. You can both, last year, we completely were in the now and we were working on the list and that's where all our attention was focused. However, we also were taking notes of things that we learned so we could implement them this year. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons that this year felt so much easier because we knew what we were doing. And so basically the takeaway there is anything in your business that you're going to do, again, even if it's a social media post, you know what you like, you know your style, you know the words you like to use, put a process around it. So at any point, if you want to do it again, or if you want to hire somebody like a virtual assistant, you have those documents in place.
Yeah, and even when we were doing it last year, we kind of had this idea that it might be a recurring thing, but we didn't know that absolutely positively. But it was really helpful even still to look at how we did things, what worked, what didn't. We did run a behind the scenes post on 100 Best Sites, I believe. And being able to look at that stuff so that this year we could look at, yes, these are the emails we sent out, or this is the form we used, but we could also look at, and this is what worked about it, and this is what didn't. And it made it really easy to iterate.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And I think you just touched on, we used some of the same emails. So we emailed all of the winners, which we think is really important to do individual emails because we think speculation that it increases engagement. I know for me, and I think for you, Sarah, when you get an individual email, you're so much more likely to respond and engage than when you know it's a form email.
Especially if they spell our name right.
Yes, always a plus, people. And we both have names that get messed up a lot. So we try. We did make some mistakes, but we try. And so, so we used the same email to those winners, and because it said it all, and we didn't really need to to improve it.
Yeah.
Because we're perfect already.
We clearly made a few small updates where we make it super easy for them to share. So we give them kind of prefab social media graphics, a click to tweet, share this Facebook post, repin this pin. So those are small updates, but that's another lesson right there is, and we talked about this a lot with the bundle, I believe, of making it really easy for people to share.
Yes. Yeah, and we actually have a post in the works about creating a little swipe file. So basically, anytime you're involving other people in your business, whether it's affiliates, whether it's people who are winning some list that you put together, making it easy for them. So we'll have that post out to you guys soon.
Yeah. But all in all, the things that we were able to carry over really did save us hours. And I think it allowed us to have a lot more fun with the descriptions and the process of actually putting the post together.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the things that felt so much easier this year. And it's something that we like more this year, I think, is it just, we wrote when we were inspired, but we still set aside chunks of time. So we knew that we had to write, but then we would pick and choose which description we were writing based on, I know, at least I did, based on who I felt inspired by that minute. And then it just felt like the descriptions flowed so much more because we had grown into the voice that we use for One Woman Shop a lot more.
Yeah. Just to expand a little, last year, I think we closed nominations and we were like, a week or two after this post needs to go up. This year we were like, no, let's give ourselves the space because we know it'll come out better if we write when we're inspired and we're not forcing it during, a 6-hour jam session till 2 a.m, even though we did kind of miss that pressure this year, I think.
Weird. I chatted Sara and I was like, is this weird that I missed the adrenaline and the chaos and the cheersing with wine at 10 p.m. So it's an interesting process to kind of have something become easy. Mm-hmm. It loses its luster a little bit. So you have to kind of work to recapture that, I think. So the challenge of success.
Yeah, that's a whole different one. But
right.
I mean, we basically just gave ourselves the room and pushed the date out, and it just kind of flowed so much nicer. And we really hope that people read the descriptions because we had so much fun writing them.
There's just I'm like, how did I end up doing this work where I can write in copy? I used Netflix and chill. You talked about wine. I talked about wine too. We're just like, how is this our job? That this is the copy we get to use. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So I would like to talk about something that we learned that is you don't always have to implement every idea you have. And maybe just because it's exciting doesn't necessarily mean it's the best choice. Do you want to go into that a little bit?
Yeah. You're talking about our potential content upgrade.
I am.
Okay. I want to make sure I'm following the right trail there. So we've mentioned that a huge benefit of doing this post is that we get a lot of increased traffic to our site.
Right.
And it's really important to us that we kind of capture that traffic, especially when we're getting a lot of new to us people. We want to cultivate relationships with those people. So we had this idea we should totally optimize this post with a content upgrade. Well, we kind of brainstormed amongst just the two of us a few different ideas. And then we've had a lot of feedback from members that we can turn to them for ideas as well, kind of use their brain power.
They're so amazing. They're not just like our focus group. They're also like our friends and our everything, but they're like our focus group in some ways.
Yeah. So we did that. We posted in our private Facebook group, a question, and we had several really good ideas. And still last week, we're kind of hemming and hawing over what this content upgrade looks like. And suddenly we kind of just paused and thought, we have a really fantastic free opt-in that we love to talk about, the Road to Solopreneur Success ebook. And the people coming to this post, they are people that are interested in starting or growing a solo business, and they're looking for resources. Well, we're already giving them 101 amazing resources. So suddenly it felt like we really were just kind of creating something extra to have something extra there when it really wasn't necessary.
Right.
So instead it became about positioning that ebook as the next thing that's needed, where you have this amazing list of resources to turn to. Now read some stories about people that are actually running their businesses.
Yeah. Well, and credit to you, because that was definitely your idea. And yeah, as Jen said in the comments, brilliant repurposing decision. So we talked so much about repurposing our content. And so we did end up promoting the ebook in a few different ways. So excuse me, we did it within the post. We did a targeted pop-up. So we used Pop-Up Ally by Natalie Lucier, who actually won in 2 different places on 100 Best Sites, which is exciting, for Ambition Ally and her individual site. And so we did a targeted pop-up that basically says, and you came up with this copy, you've got the resources, now get the stories. And so basically, I think it's a really good example of using something that already exists, but repurposing it in a way that directly speaks to the people who are there right now. And then we also, this is the first time we did this, and so kudos to our social media manager, Danielle, because she suggested this, basically having a little call to action on our Pinterest graphic. So we have a Pinterest graphic that says 100 Best Sites, and then we have a little circle that says, and our kudos to our designer as well, Christy. It says, and plus a free ebook. So basically saying, not only are you getting those 100 resources, but we're also giving you this little free.
Yeah, no, and it is exciting because we've seen, if we didn't already see a lot of success with that ebook, it might not have been such a slam dunk solution, but we know that people are really enjoying that ebook and they find it really relatable. So why not put it in more hands?
Yeah. And so one of the sentences that just got out of our mouths was, it doesn't need to feel special. So it didn't, honestly, when you came to me and you were like, let's use the Road to Solopreneur Success ebook, there's that feeling of, but it's not special. It's not exciting.
And you have to say it in that tone too.
Yeah, obviously. So it didn't feel as exciting and exhilarating as creating a brand new opt-in that we could then put out in the world. But sometimes, and I think I want to write a blog post about this, it doesn't need to feel special for you as the business owner. It needs to feel special for your clients and your customers and your readers.
Yeah, and just knowing how much time we were able to instead devote to really triple checking the posts and the resources, that just makes it so worth it too. So let's talk about kind of what else changed this year. Because one of the things that did make this year a lot harder is that we had a huge increase in nominations from last year to this year.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Right. I don't know what to say. Just that, we hoped for more and we got more, but that makes it a very challenging process. I don't know. Do you have any other insights on that?
It's the difference of, I think last year we had a little bit more flexibility in filling in the list, and we kind of saw that as this is actually a challenge because it's up to us to use our judgment and find the best resources to add to this. Well, this year we had a few hundred nominations, and it suddenly became about eliminating resources to get it down to 100. So it was really just an interesting flip of the situation where we thought, the more nominations, the better. And then suddenly we were like, wow, this makes it really difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. And so just so everyone knows, like what we confirm, not what we look for, but what we confirm in a site before we put them on the 100 Best Sites list is that they're active, So we want people who are actively creating new content. And again, we're now feeling more flexible in terms of what that content entails, whether it's video or whether it's written or podcast. So active was a huge factor for us. And then basically, we didn't want resources that only spoke to a tiny, tiny segment of our readership. So for example, a web developer, isn't going to find the most in-depth resource for learning to code or for mastering Ruby on Rails. We did put some resources like Show Crush on there, who was nominated, but we basically, we didn't want sites that were just a tiny little, only interesting to a tiny little segment.
Yeah. Then it became about, well, if we're going to kind of get into that nitty gritty, we could do a top 10 resources on Ruby on Rails alone. So it definitely was about kind of pulling back a little on those. And and then, another challenge is we actually pull out kind of the must read post or the must listen episode. And we really try to diversify those. So if we already had a post about speaking or about graphics for your blog post, we really tried to switch it up. So that made that we were falling down our own rabbit holes trying to pick out the best resources and keeping in mind 99 other resources when you're choosing that one.
Right.
Was fun, but challenging.
Challenging for sure. And so we also, if you guys have seen the post, you'll know that we did a new category this year, which is a little something extra that ended up being the name because we don't have a good name that encompasses all these different resources because they're so different from each other. So do you want to highlight a few of those?
Yeah, so I mentioned at the beginning of this blab that I got my daily meditation reminder. That was from Calm, and they're on the list under a little something extra, and it's a meditation app. Happify is another one. It's also an app, coincidentally, but it's, I think, like brain-based games that are used to promote happiness or inspire more happiness.
Yeah. Kiva, which is a microfinance lending platform. So we do a lot with Kiva throughout the year, but we did a big push with the Solopreneur Success Bundle, where we invested a percentage of sales, a percentage of profit into Kiva. And so we really feel like giving back is so cliche, but giving back is such an important part of running a business. And so we really wanted to highlight that. And then we think, you guys have heard us talk, got to get our gym reference in. We think that working out and eating healthy is an incredibly important part of running a solo business. We talk about it a lot in Solopreneur Sanity. Got to get the Solopreneur Sanity reference in, done. And so we highlighted Pop Sugar Fitness, which is a pretty awesome site.
And it's cool to bring in other resources that people don't necessarily think of top of mind when they're like, I need resources for running my business, but they are still really important aspects. So it was cool to bring that kind of stuff in. Yeah, really fun to switch it up a little bit. And basically we wanted to include those things, but it was also an exciting change from last year. We always want to evolve. Absolutely.
Yeah. Any other insights?
The insight is go check out the post because it's awesome and there's a lot of fun stuff to do on there. So I think maybe setting a timer for 15 minutes a day and digging in and, like we said, not trying to take it all in at once. But we do really hope that it's a fantastic overall resource for a ton of solo business owners out there.
Yep. Enjoy. Hashtag all right. Find your best sites.
Yes, we will see you next week for another episode of The Hot Seat.
See you guys next week. Bye.